that set the benchmarks for success in both revenue and employee satisfaction. So, what do they know that you don't know? And what if those same principles of success could be applied at leading and managing your family? Could that be important? Would it work? So that's what we're going to find out today. So, welcome to Centered Live. Our theme tonight is applying executive success principles to family relationships. So, I'm Randy Burgoyne. I'm a technology expert with more than 40 years of industry experience. Paul Maloy is a 16-year classroom veteran teacher who also has 20 years experience in project, budget management, team management, business management, employee management. And our guest host tonight is Justin Reesor. I knew I'd mess that up, Justin, sorry. Who has experience in tech support, management training, and executive coaching. And he's the creator of a highly effective centered approach to corporate leadership and founder of Trails Management. So, Justin, we were talking before about this being either trials or trails management, some of each, but tell us about what trails management is all about. Where did it come
from? So it comes from working with a lot of leaders over the last 10 or 12 years and mentoring up a lot of early young leaders and seeing that they all have different paths. They all have different obstacles, trials that they have to overcome, and no two look the same. I think it was the most stark. I had two leaders that worked up through a program at the same time, and they both wanted to manage like I managed. Apparently I inspired them. When they both got into management, they managed very differently. And so they both kind of had their own trail to get to where they wanted to be and the leader that they wanted to be. So
interesting. So not everyone has the same trail to get to their management goal.
And most people don't have the same destination in sight either. So it really is like a unique process for everyone.
It's one of the things that I really appreciated when I had the opportunity to go and through his trails management course with him as my mentor, and to have him show me that my unique background and experience and where that came to in terms of being able to leverage those talents and those skills in the job that I had at the Experimental Aircraft Association as director of education. And I just found that there was a tremendous wealth of knowledge, some skills that were improved. And then from there, I think really made me a more effective leader. And I think that even now, as I'm going back into the classroom, teaching social studies at an at-risk high school, that those skills will also come into play. So it is for me, it's an absolute pleasure to have Justin join us tonight on our Centered.Live webcast. Because I think that what he will share with all of us tonight is going to be really interesting and certainly valuable. So with that, let's kind of dive in. It's no secret that Randy and I, and actually Justin, are big fans of Simon Sinek. And one of the things that had impressed me very much a number of years ago as I began to learn about Simon Sinek and then learn from him, and especially become a student of Simon Sinek, that he had this, I don't know if I'd call it a theory, but this practice that was called the Golden Circle. And in the Golden Circle, he outlines why successful companies start with the why instead of the what. And most companies, we create a product or a service, and that is the what. Mm-hmm. And we try to market that to the world. What happens though is that the companies that are by far and away more successful start with the why. And people are definitely more interested in investing in the why than the what. In fact, Simon Sinek said people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Mm.
And so with his concepts of starting with the bullseye being the why, and then expanding to the how, and then later to the what, then it rearranges the priorities of a business. And therefore, it should also reorganize or reprioritize the management and how they manage. So, one of the things that as we were thinking about this, we said, okay, can this, as Randy mentioned in the introduction, can this knowledge, these skills, these practices, can they be applied in a family environment? Well, here's one way that you can start that, and that is to reflect on your family's why. And we'll dive into that a little bit throughout our evening tonight, but just remember that it cannot just be what. There must be a why that inspires progress. Now, let me give you a very quick, short example. I was in the store with my wife just a few days ago, and at some point, I heard a mom, and listen, we've all been there, okay? So no blame, but I heard this mom say very loudly, "Because I said so, that's why."
I've said those words.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is actually a very weak why. So when we think about your family's why, there's a whole lot more to it than just simply said, "Because I said so." All right.
So when we talk about management, when I sit down with a new manager and we kind of go through our course, one of my big points is talking about trust. How do we build trust? Without trust, the relationships kind of just fall apart. A lot of leaders do this love bomb trust. It's kind of what I like to call it, where it's like, oh, every 6 months we're going to have a big meeting and we're going to shower you with whatever it is. We're going to give you a whole bunch of attention for a day, and then you can all go back and do your thing, and then you won't see me again for another 6 months. It doesn't work very good. It's a lot better if you're consistent, if you're true to what you say, if you're true to your why, and you're there with the team consistently. Those small, consistent day-to-day things, that's where we build the trust. It's again, when we talk about trails, it's that consistent, steady progress. You don't make it to the mountain in 30 seconds or 5 minutes. It takes time. You one step after another. You take each bend one at a time. It's slow progress. So reflecting that to home and the family, I've got 2 little kids, and there's a lot of trust building every day. It's being there for them and listening to them. Oh, I tell leaders all the time, just listen more than you talk.
Yep.
Please. There's so much you can get. Just gather information before you say anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And sometimes for a leader, that's hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah. It takes some practice.
Wow. Yep, it does.
It's really hard as a parent. I
Yes.
can do it in the leader space pretty okay.
It's easy.
As a parent,
than your own children.
oh man, I try. I practice it every day.
Yeah.
But it's hard. They know how to push your buttons, and they know how to drive you up a wall sometimes. But the more that I can sit down and I can get on their level and talk their language, that's where magic happens. That's where I can connect with them better.
Right. You're creating a safe emotional space for them.
Exactly. They've got that little safe space of, oh, okay, Dad's here. I'm not in trouble. We're just having a conversation. I can tell him what's going on.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about Simon Sinek's advice, he tells leaders to ask questions, not just give orders.
Hmm.
So let's say, for example, that an employee messes up and some project just goes totally wrong, and he brings in the employee and sits down instead of just launching into the employee about how bad things turned out. you he says, ask questions, get their
Right.
point of view, and that way you can maintain the relationship with that individual. So I really like the
That one, I've actually practiced that one. Like
mm,
I've gone into situations where I was like, 95% I know exactly what happened in this situation. And I
mm,
went in there and started asking questions, and that 5% popped up, and I was like, oh, you actually handled that exactly how I would expect you to handle that. That was fantastic, and now we're having a different conversation.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that conversation would typically be safer,
Hmm.
more collegial.
Yeah.
And there again, that's what happens, is that trust is built there. So imagine doing that with your children. And when we talk about children, let's understand that when you're talking about young children, you can still do this. So as they're developing their language skills, as they're beginning to explore the world around them, and they don't always know what is going to be dangerous or what is going to be bad, right? And so having these opportunities to say, okay, hold on, help me understand what it is that you're seeing. Now, granted, a 2-year-old at this point is going to have some limited processing, but the point is that you get that practice, you establish the relationship. So at 5, at 7 or 8, 10, 13, which is a pivotal age, and then as they continue through their teenage years, if you've already created that relationship, you have created a bond that is practically unbreakable. Now, we can still mess up, right? Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later as well. But point being is that it's not something, as Justin has said already, that happens overnight. There's a trail of progress that is required. Now, having said that, if there are any of our listeners who are already with teenagers or adult children and they're saying, well, I've never been able to create a relationship with my children like that, just start now, because it's never too late to begin to improve a relationship with your family members.
Right, right. And technology can help with some of the communication issues
Sure.
we run into. Of course, as a technologist, I always think, oh, there's an app for that, right?
Right.
We can fix that. But there are simple things. For example, as I really didn't have Google or Google Calendar when our kids were young. It started, I don't know what, 17, 18 years ago, when at least the shared calendar and the idea of being able to have multiple people view a calendar, that was a lifesaver for our family. We had older kids, we had married kids, we had teenagers, and everybody going different directions. Having that calendar helps a lot, and I think that it's actually helpful for the younger kids too, to have a big white calendar with boxes on it, and they write what they're going to do for the day. So when it comes down to going to a cousin's wedding reception or something, they're not surprised. They're not pulled out of their element and all of a sudden shocked into doing something, even though would be fun. They need to plan for it in their own minds.
Well, and again, even though you said that when you with your kids you didn't have the high tech stuff, and now you really could, you link and synchronize calendars, but think about just being able to talk with children who are no longer in the home. I tried to do that with my 5 children, and I'm not as good as I should be in consistently calling and talking with them, visiting with them on a regular basis. We do pretty good. We connect with our children at least once a month, some more often. But one of the things that we have tried, and it is still in a trial basis, and that is to do a video chat in a video conference once a month. And, um, to varying degrees of success there. I know that my brother gets all of his children, and he has 7 children, I think. They get together now that they're all adults. They're all, jobs and other responsibilities. He tries to gather his children once a month, and they go out to dinner. And I think they have a favorite place. So now they're showing up at the same time of each month at the same place. And they just enjoy being together. And that is definitely family that you create the family and sustain the family values by doing those things.
Yeah, and my family, we have a WhatsApp group, and in fact, earlier today, right in the middle of my work day, I was getting these images popped up of my grandkids, and of course, they're the cutest things in the world.
Of course.
But I love being able to connect with my kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
Like that.
We have a text group for our children, and we get pictures and have fun.
Yeah. Yep. Too much fun sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So maybe Justin can share a little bit with us, because there's a really interesting, I don't know if I'd call it a dilemma, but a trial in leadership, and it extends to us as parents. And that is this issue of controlling our children. So maybe address that a little bit.
Yeah. So in leadership, we look at it's called micromanaging versus macromanaging. The way that I coach this is there's kind of a time for both. Okay. When I have someone who's new, who doesn't know what they're doing, so they're in a new role or we just hired them on, we micromanage them. We hold their hand. We guarantee them success.
Mm-hmm.
And after we've gone through it, then we just start to give them a little more space, a little more space, a little more space. We move into this macro managing phase where we just look at the results. We look at how are they doing, and then we do little course corrections along the way. I can tell you with my kids from experience as a dad that when I try to micromanage my boys, we don't get very far. That, like, they know when I've turned on like dad mode, where it's like, okay, you're going to do the things I tell you to do, and they shut down. They don't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
Going back to where we started, they want to know why we're doing it. If mom steps out and it's like, okay, boys, let's go ahead and like clean the house, and we're going to surprise mom. Suddenly they get the why, and I've never seen those boys clean faster in my entire life. They're on it. They're like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to surprise mom. They get the purpose of it. And I don't have to tell them everything to do. I just say, hey, here's the list of chores we got to get done. Let's get them done before mom gets home. And they're on it. You know, they like being involved. It's kind of it's a human thing. We like to succeed. We like to accomplish things, even from like a young age. They want to be included. They want to help out. My 7-year-old this week has decided, I want to learn how to make pancakes and French toast. And so we've made pancakes and French toast, and he's got to do the flipping, and he's mixing it up and everything. And like, he just wants to do what we're doing. And the more that we include him, the more that he wants to do it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I know that you had mentioned to me in my training was, things like asking my employee team, what do you need from me right now? Right? How can I support your goals? Does that work with kids?
I'd say, yeah. Again, it goes back to like getting on their level. You got to know what they want, what makes them engaged in
Right.
an activity.
Yeah.
Like I know that like we're gonna surprise mom. That's a big thing for my boys. Like they love surprising mom. So if I can leverage that, that works really good. They like that one. There's other things that they don't get into. Randy kind of talked about changing gears. They have a really hard time changing gears. If they're playing inside, they want to play inside. Their friends can be outside playing, and they're like, nope, I don't want to change gears. But as soon as they change those gears, that's all they want to do. They just want to stay outside and play. They don't want to change them back. You know,
Right.
so it's knowing them, and you only know that when you like get on their level and you ask them those questions, and you ask them like, how can I help you? How can what do you need from me? What are you feeling? You got to create that safe space, and then you got to talk to them on their level.
And let me just point out that this is not particularly new information. This isn't, you know, like something that should be astonishing to anybody. This is common sense. This is really balanced leadership. This is balanced parenting. And one of the things, because again, as a historian, I thought that I would just share real quick that when we look at strong families historically, and we see leadership that comes out of these strong families, it wasn't by accident. Let me give you just a few quick examples from American history. And I'm going to start with the George Washington family. And I'm not going to go into his deep history, but the point being is that George Washington's mother and father established his exposure to education, and he enjoyed it. He was encouraged to get as much education as possible. And then at a certain point, when other opportunities opened up, they encouraged him to get involved, as in at the point that there was a Virginia territory militia. This is way before the American Revolution. They encouraged him to get involved with the British-led Virginia militia to go and participate in what at that point was known as it later became known as the French and Indian War, giving him some leadership principles, giving him some experience, which he made some mistakes. He also proved himself in that arena. Now, fast forward, and we come to the Roosevelt family. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Theodore Roosevelt or you're talking about Franklin Roosevelt. They were raised in an environment that encouraged education, encouraged experience, encouraged participation, encouraged exploration. And those men, definitely without any question, had the foundation of success established for them. And then they were able to leverage from there to continue to go. And then I think, again, regardless of the family situation, the family dynamics, let me just mention that without being politically inclined one way or the other, I have been very impressed by Barack Obama. And if you know anything about him, you know that his father came from Africa. His mother was U.S. And they tried raising Barack in that kind of encouraging environment. And eventually they split, they divorced. And yet each of them continued to encourage young Barack to excel. And he responded to that environment of excellence. And we see that with other very prominent leaders, business leaders, political leaders, in that they are standing on the shoulders of a family that created an environment that encouraged them to do the very best that they could. And it's not all about money. Barack Obama did not come from parents who had money. The Kennedys definitely had money. Again, you look at the Kennedys and their involvement in our American political system, they were set in an environment that encouraged them to explore and be involved, to invest in their success. And definitely each of them in their varying capacities and directions were able to make a difference, make an enormous difference. And I think you could look at business leaders, political leaders of all parties and of all different kinds of, shall we say, product and revenue success. You would find that is consistently true. So just as a thing to think about, our family's legacy then is being shaped by how we are raising our children. And I think that is maybe a little bit intimidating. But I also think that if we know that, we can do what we need to do in order to continue to foster that type of success. Now, that does not mean enable children by taking away their trials. In fact, it's just the opposite. If anything, it means that we're encouraging our children to solve their problems as best as they can and pitching in only when it's absolutely necessary. It does not mean bailing them out of trouble. As a teacher, I ran into what used to be called helicopter parents. And I will tell you, helicopter parents are not the worst. The very worst, and I think we've mentioned it on this show before, is the steamroller parents who want to clear every single obstacle, every bump. They want it to be as smooth as possible for their child. And they are doing an enormous detrimental disservice for and to their children at that point. So it's important that we encourage our children, okay, encourage our children, and maybe as we try to understand what the why of our family is, I would challenge all of our listeners to actually document what their family values are and to look for, why are we here together as a family? What's the point? What's the purpose of us in terms of being a family? How are we going to, and again, not just how, but why? What are we doing and why?
Yeah, I love that. That kind of goes into a management practice called like growth mindset.
Yes.
Where we want to encourage.
Randy and I have talked about growth mindset on this show before. Yes.
Yeah. Like it's so interesting to see management and parenting styles where I call it like the iron fist. Mm-hmm. For you, it's the steamroller, where you have this iron fisted leader who, like, my team is going to do all of this stuff, and they hold everyone 100% accountable, and no one can step out of line. They just can't let go, There's no room for failure. They feel like it's a mark on themselves. That's typically where that comment comes from, is I'm failing because this thing didn't go as I planned.
Right.
And so trying to get those leaders to like loosen up and relax and take a breath and take a second and say, okay, that mistake that you saw happen, that's not the end of the world. There's very few, like in my management career, there's only been 2 or 3 things in 10 years where I'm like, you're going to get fired because of that.
Ooh.
Right? Like,
but probably justified.
Yeah, they were unfortunately justified, but they were also really big things. You have to like really mess up to get to that point.
Yeah. Like theft or something like that.
That's exactly one of them. Yeah.
Or cheating or lying or stealing, that kind of a thing. Yeah.
It's so interesting when you like sit down with people and you talk through, quote unquote, like a failure, something that they did wrong, and you rephrase the conversation as to, hey, just help me understand what happened. What was going on here? And then they're a little tense at first and they start talking. You go, oh, I didn't know that piece of information. Well, what'd you do about it? What tools did you have available to you? And about halfway through the conversation, you ask, okay, well, what could we have done better to support you in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you see the light bulb go on and they go, I'm not in trouble. I'm going to help this team be better. I'm going to help the family unit or whatever it is be better the next time this comes around. And I'm not going to get in trouble. I've been in so many of these conversations where people thought, oh man, I'm done. This is it. I'm going to get fired. And we come out of the conversation and they're like, wow, that was enlightening. And the next week they come to me and they say, hey, this thing happened. Can we talk it out? Can we get ahead of it?
And again, imagine your kids doing that. Now, one of the things that I love about your approach, both in terms of management as well as how it applies in the family, is that you have this phrase that you always want leaders to encourage curiosity and not criticism.
Mm.
I absolutely love that. And if I might just tag team onto that, let me share something that came to me yesterday from another person that I deeply admire. He is the leader of a school in Utah that's called Roots Academy. It's a high school for at-risk students. And he has recently started publishing online a book. And in this chapter that came out this week, he said, we often think of love as romantic, soft, and sentimental, something that comes after the hard work is done. But if we want transformation, lasting, meaningful, identity level change, love can't be the reward at the end. Now, think about how this is now going to apply. And this, yes, this can be absolutely applied in a corporate environment. But here we're thinking specifically again of leadership principles applied at home. So he says it has to be the beginning. It's not the end, it's the beginning. Not just because it feels good, but because it works. Love lays the neurological, psychological, and spiritual foundation for every kind of growth that matters. Real love, unconditional, consistent, non-performative love does something to a human being that no rule, program, or punishment ever could. Love rewires the brain. Love creates safety. Remember, we mentioned that earlier. Love unlocks identity. Love makes risk possible. Remember when we talked about encourage curiosity, not criticism. Love precedes courage, and love heals. Wow. Powerful, powerful concept.
Yeah, and I think that the interactions that you have with employees or children that build on that love, that respect, that trust, whether it's a home or a business environment, will help you get over the rough spots. It's like filling. One author talked about your emotional bank account. If you're filling up that emotional bank account and there's a tragedy and you have to draw from that, you still have something in there to save that relationship. And I think that that's key to, saving an employee, like you said, Justin, that might be on the edge. But also it gets to the point where if you have trust and you sit down with them in an environment, let's say it's not, there's no issue, there's no problem. It's just maybe a quarterly employee review. You sit down with your supervisor. If you've got a authoritarian type leader who's going to say, okay, well, this is what needs to be done, and these are our goals, and this is what we're going to reach, and this is what you're going to do. Instead, the authoritative person will say, okay, let's set out a goal. We want to improve in these areas. How do you think we need to do it? And then I had a boss that did this to me, and I learned it from him, is about he asked me how I wanted to improve, wrote down the notes and said, okay, I'm going to follow up with you next time to see how you're doing on that. Can we meet again in a month or a week or whatever? And all of a sudden it was like, oh, you mean you liked my idea? It was good. And so one time I was having trouble in a particular department. I was in charge of a department of about 8 people, and things weren't going well. Conflicts and personalities. So I got everybody in one room and I said, okay, I wrote everybody's names at the top of the board. I said, first of all, I want to understand what everybody does. Everybody's busy, and I was fairly new with the company, been there less than a year. And I said, I really don't know what you all do. So let's talk about that. What do you do? What needs to be done? And then we broke it down into, okay, well, these two people here are in accounting and they need this kind of role, and this people over here are over inventory and they need this guidance. And having them come up with the plan of what needs to be done, their job role. And I actually asked them to write their own job description and helped me and helped them at the same time. So I think that those kind of trust building activities get to the point where you can help an employee set their own objectives, set their own goals, and then help them achieve them are going to be a lot more effective than just mandating it, right? So
Absolutely. And certainly, one of the things that I learned from working with your family business, Burgoyne Computers Inc., 86 through or 87 through 91. But your dad was the epitome of, I will back up my employees. I will support them. I will provide for them the best possible work environment that we can create together. And then he didn't worry about how we were working with the customer. He knew that because we felt like we were being supported for the very best possible outcome, that we would take care of our customers to the very best possible outcome. And that kind of an approach is rare in business.
Happy employees make happy customers.
that's right. Good point.
Nutshell wisdom right there.
I loved your points about goals. That's a really good. I want to bring it back up. That was a perfect what versus why. That authoritarian, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do, versus let me tell you what we're trying to do as an organization, and you tell me how you can support that. What's your part of it? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, especially when they understand, again, the why. What why are we in business? Why do we exist? What's not just what is our goal, but why does our goal exist?
Why does it matter?
Yeah.
Right. Well, this has been enlightening, and I think let's just kind of sum up in some particular ideas and concluding a summary for each of you. So, Paul, give us your concluding thoughts about this growth mindset and this the whole idea of leadership principles for family and for your life, whatever.
Okay. Well, I think, first of all, everybody needs to accept, and I think everybody that is a parent does understand that parenting is challenging. In a way, it's like launching and building and sustaining a company that you want to be successful, not just for yourself, but also fulfilling, rewarding, with an environment that encourages exploration, expansion, and life success for your children. To do that, you, the parent, must remain engaged in developing and steering the success of your family. And you do that by continuing to learn and improving your craft as a parent/leader. Never stop learning, never stop improving.
Great. So, Justin, what are your insights to summarize up our discussion here?
My advice, my insights would be: take a big breath and step back. Everybody's an individual, whether you're working with kids, employees, adult family members. Think about where they're coming from and how to communicate with them. Get on their level and see things through their eyes, and just be patient with yourself as much as you are with them. I see so many times where we rush into things that aren't important. So take a breath, center yourself, look at all the context of everything around you and the situation, and then once you have a good grasp on it and you're in the right headspace, then act and put a plan in place.
Great, perfect, and those are great ways to conclude. So appreciate Justin joining us, and as always, Paul, we're grateful that we have a team and growing leadership, membership, subscriptionship. So we appreciate our watchers too, and please be sure to like, save, share,
And share.
and leave some comments. Would love to hear some of your comments about your experiences in managing a team at work or your family. So thank you again, and signing out from Connect Live. We'll see you next time.